They got their money, but we've got our soul. Let's roll, never get their control. They got their money, but we've got our soul.
Hey everybody, welcome to Moment of Clarity. How you doing out there? How y'all's doing? That was plural, y'alls. That was more than one y'all. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Derek, JJ, Curtis, Tony. Thanks for being here. Please take a minute to share this, email it to people, or click the like and the thumbs up and the two elbows, elbow bomb, fist bump. Click all those. And yeah, we're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into the House has voted to end the AUMF. Could that be real? Are they really ending the authorization for the use of military force? Are we going to stop our endless wars around the entire fucking world? Is it really ending? Is it? The answer is no. And I'll tell you why in a second. Sorry to get your hopes up like that. But I did that to get your hopes up in my defense. But I'm also going to get into, for a brief moment, don't want to waste too much time on it, I'm going to get into why the Young Turks really sucks. Like, beyond just what you've heard bandied about over this latest fight, I want to get into why they suck beyond just that. But let's start with first things first, which is to go live on Rockfin, because I always forget until I'm halfway through the show, which is not cool. Hey Jane, hey Dolores, hey Robin, and others, thanks for joining. So, and by the way, if you donate, all the donations on the Super Chat, all the donations on Rockfin, all the donations on Venmo at Lee Camp, they all go to people who are struggling right now in these incredibly difficult times. And yeah, we talk more about that on the weekend live stream. But yes, all those go to those who are struggling. It is kind of our own little moment of clarity, common censored community solidarity fund is what we're doing with that. But yeah, let's dig into it. So, I don't know if you caught this in the news, but, and I'll show it to you here, the House voted to repeal the 2002 authorization for military force with strong bipartisan support and a White House endorsement. And I don't know, if you're like me, then you hear White House endorsement, you hear bipartisan, and you think, oh, we're about to get really fucked. Super fucked. When they come together, when all sides come together to do something for us, it means bend over and grab the lube. That is what that means. Hi, Isabel from Quebec. That's what that means. So here's the thing: is I read the headlines about the AUMF, and so, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me touch on this article here. The House voted Thursday to repeal the 19-year-old military authorization Congress passed to give legal backing to the Iraq War with the support of Democrats and Republicans and the endorsement of the White House, an unprecedented coalition to end post-9/11 authorities to engage in hostilities that critics argue are outdated. The 268 to 161 vote reflects growing bipartisan support for the repeal effort. And so you really read this and you think, oh my God, it's really happening. We're actually going to end the authorization for the use of military force, which is what the White House and the Pentagon under the White House have been using to do this endless bombing, to do this endless fucking destruction of countries around the world that so many people have been fucking livid about and others have been relatively apathetic about. Because as long as the bombs are landing over there, not here, who gives a shit, right? But this has been going on right since 9/11. We went to war, meaning invasion of countries that had nothing to do with 9/11. And, you know, even if there were factors in that country that had something to do with 9/11, that doesn't mean you should just be able to obliterate their whole country and destroy people's lives and kill 1 million people in Iraq. And then we've used that same AUMF permission. See, the way our system was supposedly set up was that Congress was supposed to have the war powers. Congress was supposed to approve war in order for the president to tell the military to go fucking kill people. That was the idea initially. This AUMF was a broad congressional approval, a blank check for just go fucking kill people. Go kill all you want. Go obliterate civilians. Obama drone bombed more than ever before. He drone bombed American citizens, and they basically were proud of it. Obama said, quote, turns out I'm really good at killing people. Under Obama, his final year, 26,000 drone bombs were dropped in a year. Then Trump's first year increased that to 40,000 a year. So, you know, if you're under the impression Trump somehow decreased the bombing, that is not true either. But all of this has been done under the AUMF, the Authorization for the Use of Military Force. Now, there were two of these passed, one in 2001, one in 2002. And when people hear that the House, with Biden's support, just voted to repeal the 2001 AUMF, then people think, voted to repeal the 2002 AUMF, then people think, oh, maybe it's finally happening. Maybe the president of the United States is finally saying, this is fucking nuts. What are we fucking doing? Maybe the president, the executive, is decreasing his power for the first time like ever. Because whenever you give the president new tools, it doesn't matter if they came under Trump, if they came under Obama or Bill Clinton or Bush, they never let go of them, right? At no point are they like, you know what? I don't need that power anymore. Obama got into office and we were all talking about surveillance, right? And oh my God, Snowden revealed all this surveillance. Well, did Obama really take steps to decrease the amount of surveillance that the government could do on your average citizens, on American citizens? No. He did some window dressing shit. He was like, hey, we're not going to check your phone records or whatever the fuck they said. But in fact, it was because it was redundant stuff. It was information they already had elsewhere. Anyway, the president never takes steps to give up any powers he has. And now we have just about a unitary executive. We have an executive that is all powerful, which was not the way this country was originally founded. I'm not one of the people who thinks it was founded fucking perfectly. These were white landowning slave masters who founded it. So let's not pretend it was founded perfectly. But they did intend for the three branches to kind of even each other out to some degree. And instead, we now have, for example, this AUMF that says, blank check, go bomb, do whatever the fuck you want. Congress is never going to intercede. Congress will never get in your way. You bomb whoever the fuck you want, all day, every day. 26,000, 40,000 a year, who gives a shit? Just keep them going. Just one every 12 minutes was when it was 40,000 a year. And so it got very, very exciting to hear they were repealing this. Now, I think it hasn't passed the Senate yet, but it could. And if it passes the Senate, we would see a repeal of this 2002 authorization for the use of military force. But so then I started looking into it. I was like, well, what about the 2001 AUMF? Is Biden really giving up his powers? And it turns out, no. Basically, the 2001, if you repeal the 2002 AUMF and you don't repeal the 2001 AUMF, you have not really changed the presidential powers at all. Joe Biden or whoever the president is, whether it's Donald Trump next time, very well could be, can continue to just bomb at will without any congressional approval, unless you repeal the other AUMF. And yet, again, you know, Biden is, honestly, if there's one thing the Biden administration will be known for, it's the window dressing administration. It's an administration that runs around and says, we're doing this and we're doing this and look at us doing this, and it's all horseshit. It's a tiny fucking fraction of what actually needs to be done, but they can say they did it. The one I'm going to talk about on Redacted tonight coming up is the claims, the Forbes article, et cetera, saying, oh, Biden has canceled $3 billion in student loan debt. it turns out that's 0.19% of our student loan debt. It is fucking nothing. Nothing. And yet people are being crushed under student loan debt. People's whole lives are decided by the fucking student loan debt. I mean, how you get one shot at this existence, folks, and people are spending their whole lives dealing with student loan debt, taking a career they don't want so that they can pay off student loan debt, making decisions in their lives. I can't afford a house, can't afford a kid, can't afford to do this, can't afford to do that, can't afford to take a vacation, can't afford to take a break, all because of fucking student loan debt. It's destroying lives. And yet Biden is claiming he's canceling student loan debt because he's canceled 0.19% of student loan debt. Fucking nothing. I'll talk more about that on Redacted tonight. But so I started looking around, and while there were some kind of independent journalists, some activist, anti-war journalists like David Swanson talking about how repealing one AUMF without the other does not really do anything. And furthermore, what he fears they'll do is repeal the 2002 and then say, well, we need to rewrite 2001. And then Congress rewrites, or Biden rewrites the 2001 AUMF for a new, better, shinier AUMF that gives them all the same power, but really kind of codifies it even more, puts it into a framework where it's clear it will never be changed or removed. Whereas right now, at least people are talking about the fact that this shit's 18, 19 years old. Hey, it can vote. The AUMF can vote. How exciting. Pretty soon it can get a beer. So let me show you one article. There is one article from a somewhat mainstream outlet about this fact. This is from Esquire magazine. Isn't it funny? You have to go to these like fucking offshoot mainstream, somewhat mainstream magazines and shit. You know, like Teen Vogue has a lot of good articles. Some of these Vogue will do a good one. You got to go to these like offshoot magazines to try and find anything that matters because they've realized, or Business Insider. You can get some good articles from Business Insider because they realize that they just want clicks, and they realize if they cover real shit, sometimes they'll get clicks. And so they'll actually do this stuff. Whereas, you know, CNN, you're not going to hear it from CNN. They're too busy with propaganda to even take a moment, to even take a breather and go, hey, maybe just for some clickbait, we'll try to tell the truth. Let's give it a go. What the hell could the harm be? So this is from Esquire magazine. If the Senate is serious about ending endless wars, it should focus on the 2001 AUMF. Chuck Schumer announced a move to repeal the 2002 AUMF, but the 2001 is getting far more of a workout. And by that, he doesn't mean that the AUMF is, it's like using the fucking chin-up bar and the vagina spreader machine and the whatever that one is, where you have your thighs in the thing. It's like stirrups and anyway, he doesn't, or the shake weights, the masturbation machine. He doesn't mean AUMF's doing that when he says workout. He means that most of the time that our country is endlessly bombing, it's because the president is using the 2001 AUMF to say he has the legal right to bomb the fuck out of everyone. Esquire article says the 2002 AUMF, which they're with great fanfare getting ready to repeal, the AUMF has very rarely been cited as the sole justification for U.S. military intervention abroad since the Iraq War was declared over in 2011. The Trump administration did use it, or at least a wild extension thereof, to justify the airstrike that killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani in January 2020, or as Trump would say, Qasim, because Trump doesn't understand that the letter Q can ever appear without a U and make a different sound. So if you ever see Trump trying to say a word that has a Q without a U, like Qasim, he'll say Qasim, because Trump's not much of a reader and he hasn't seen many of the words. The Obama administration used it as an alternative statutory basis to justify airstrikes against ISIS in 2014. But the main basis was the 2001 AUMF. So anyway, this goes into how the 2001 AUMF is the one that they use the most, and by far the most common for them to justify all of their disgusting, repulsive, morally repugnant war crimes. They point to the 2001 AUMF as they obliterate innocent civilians around the world. They go, look at this little piece of paper. This says I get to do it. And that's how they do it. And so right now, when you see your Democrats, your Chuck Schumers, and bipartisanship, right? Some of the Republicans, too, saying we need to repeal this 2002 AUMF. Keep in mind, that's because they know that it won't change anything. That's classic Democrat theater. We're going to make big fanfare about how we're doing the right thing. We want to stop the endless wars. Look at us go. Because they know it won't change much. And that is why they're doing this with great fanfare. Now, here's the thing. If they were to announce they're repealing both, they're getting rid of both, tearing up both, then all right, fucking yeah, do it. But let's see them do that first. Listen, if they tear up both and don't replace the 2001 with some horrible alternative, if they literally tear up both so that Biden has to go to Congress to allow for bombing of other countries and get votes on bombing other countries and intervening, quote unquote, which is our word for war crimes, intervention. And he has to go to Congress to get a vote for that kind of stuff. When that happens, I will say, I'm sorry. I will come crawling back. I will go, oh my God, you guys, I didn't trust you. I thought you weren't serious, but look at you. You're amazing. Wow, you go, guys. Something tells me I'm not going to have to do that. Something tells me there's not going to be a lot of apologies on that front. You fucking assholes with you. I mean, honestly, the number of war crimes they've stacked up over the years is just incredible. So that is what's going on with the AUMF, which should be a major story, right? That is, if you could actually stop the American empire from committing war crimes so regularly, even if you just slowed it down, even if you just put one of those speed humps in, which you notice that they started calling them speed humps instead of speed. When I was growing up, they were speed bumps, which seemed to make more sense because they're bumps. But now the signs say speed hump, which, you know, every time I see one of those signs, I'll look to the person in the passenger seat and be like, you ready for this? We hardly know each other, but you got to do what the sign says. Anyway, if they could just put a fucking hurdle in front of our endless war crimes, that would be a good thing. I would celebrate that. And so this should be a major story. It should be a major story that they're repealing one without repealing the other. And everybody should be talking about what the fuck about the other one. Repeal both of them. Get rid of both AUMFs, and then we'll talk. And then we'll act like you're not fucking villains. How about that? All right. I'm going to get to the next topic here in a second. See if anybody's got any questions. But, yeah, if you take a second, please click the thumbs up. Please share this. I'm heavily suppressed, as you know, after the 2016 election, where a socialist damn nearly got the nomination for president in the Democratic Party. That was about the time that they made sure I can't get more than a few thousand people to see any given video. But so I'm heavily suppressed, but that doesn't mean some of this stuff doesn't help. So please click the thumbs up. Please share it. Please talk about it. Please let people know. Please subscribe. All the donations in the Super Chat are given to people who are struggling in our Solidarity Fund. But the one place you can become a member, actually, and support the show is liberapay.com/LeeCamp, LIBERAPAY.com/LeeCamp. But, okay, I want to get into, and I'm not going to get into the details because I've talked about that enough, but to why the Young Turks really suck. And this is in a larger way than the little fight they're having right now with Jimmy Dore and Aaron Mate. I want to get into to the larger, broader understanding of what the Young Turks are. Because right now it's about, them going after serious journalists because they're not serious journalists themselves, and they're very upset about that. So they've decided to attack Aaron Mate and stuff. But also recently, yet another clip of Cenk saying that we should be bombing Syria has come out. And meanwhile, as that clip came out, Cenk went on other shows to say people are lying about him, and he's never advocated for bombing Syria. So you can watch those two clips back to back. You can watch Cenk on his show on the Young Turks going, listen, we need to bomb Syria because they crossed the red line when it comes to chemical weapons. So, bomb some innocent civilians. He didn't say it like that, but he said we need to bomb Syria to set an example. And so you can see that clip, and then you can click right to the next clip that shows Cenk this week on various shows going, they're lying about me. I never said we should bomb Syria. So, in that way, he's a fraud and a liar. But I'm not going to talk about that because I know plenty of other shows are talking about that. But I want to talk about overall what the Young Turks is. And the Young Turks, and you guys already know that they took the $20 million of Clinton machine money, whatever it was, 3 years back or whenever, and there would seem to be a major shift around that time. But beyond even that, I went to the Young Turks YouTube page to see what it is that they're uploading. Like, what are they? Like, I haven't watched them in years. I haven't been on the Young Turks in years. So I haven't really kept up with what they do, what they are. And so I went over. This is today. This is right now. I didn't go back in their archives or anything. I just went over their page. And so the one video, the first video could arguably be something important. March Against Manchin for the fight to secure voting rights. But okay, so you got that one video that just came out that arguably something important worth talking about maybe. Next video, TikToker complains about living in a castle. So meaningless, pointless video. Second video up there. Next video. Parents and coaches brawl over T-ball. And it's a viral video of parents and coaches fighting over a T-ball game. So, yet again, completely vapid nothingness. If that were on CNN, that would be vapid. If you flipped on CNN right now and they were like, hey, look at this T-ball, parents are fighting, you'd be like, this is the dumbest, most vapid shit I've ever seen. And Young Turks advertise themselves as the alternative to the mainstream media, but they're arguably more vapid, more meaningless than the mainstream media, if you look at these clips. Next clip. Man survives being swallowed by a whale. Yet again, not a news report that actually matters. I mean, it's one of those fascinating things. If you saw it in a science magazine, sure, read about that guy getting swallowed by that whale. But it doesn't have any larger implications. There's no importance to that story beyond just like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Oh, cool, interesting. I'll read that for a minute, and it will not change anything in my life. And so you see many of these stories, like, when I went to their page, I didn't even realize I was going to find shit that vapid. I thought it was going to, because I checked it once last week, and I thought it was just going to be dumb Trump stories. And that is what follows. That's what comes next, is dumb Trump stories. Next story, Trump caught in a petty lie. Even in the headline, they're admitting it's petty. So they're admitting this story is meaningless. It's just Trump lying again, but we've heard him lie 8 billion times, and he's not in office anymore. So what the fuck does this story matter? It doesn't. Fox News guest reveals Republican plan to steal the election. Okay, well, we know Fox News is bullshit. We know Fox News guests are bullshit. We know a Fox News guest is one person. So what one liar says when he's lying on a lying network about what might happen in 2024, another meaningless story. Republican accidentally supports critical race theory. Okay, so this is, again, one person. I didn't click on it to see who it is, but this is, again, one. I assume it's no one big, no one important, because otherwise they would have given their name. So one Republican said something dumb. Okay, meaningless story. Then Zuckerberg's self-serving rules flop in Congress. And then you get to the next video after that is how to protect trans people. Okay, so that one is important. But how many did we go through to get to one, possibly two important videos that matter at all? And this is, I don't think this is new for the Young Turks. This is their long-term, what they are, is vapid, meaningless nonsense. I used to think that most of it was political nonsense about, oh, Ted Cruz tripped on a stick and fell down. Look at him fall down. I thought it was that stuff, but it turns out it's even more vapid than that. It's parents angry at a T-ball game. TikTok video of kid in Italian castle saying that it's tough to find stuff that she lost because there's lots of rooms. Now, if they would take a story like the TikToker who is in an Italian castle and that's been passed down in her family and complaining, and get to a deeper understanding of our reality that explains some of this. For example, so that's the only video I actually watched a few minutes of to see whether they were saying anything substantive about this dumb TikTok video, and they don't. Other than they say, oh, how unfair for someone in a castle to talk about this when people are poor and homeless. That's an okay point. They make that for about 1 second. But if you were to get deeper into the understanding of our socioeconomic system and our world and our hierarchies, then they could discuss how, well, what are castles? Why do they exist? Well, they existed to be ostentatious, to show off wealth over others, to say, look at this grand thing we have, you do not have it. That is why they were built to begin with, right? Was a grand show of egregious, ridiculous, meaningless wealth. That is what they fucking are. That is why they exist. That is still why the monarchy sits in fucking gold thrones and gives speeches on how we need to care about the poor from their fucking gold thrones. That's what it is. So I'm not saying this little girl on TikTok, whatever she is, a 15-year-old or whatever, saying that, oh, well, actually her parents are not that wealthy and the castle's been passed down in their family, and so they can't hire all the gardeners they need, so it takes them 3 days to mow the lawn and shit like that. It's like, okay, I'm not faulting this 15-year-old for not fucking getting it, but a deeper understanding would say, well, these things were built as a grand show of wealth. So it's not surprising that if they get passed down to a family that does not have tons of wealth, then yeah, they can't afford to take care of them because they don't have the grand wealth to have a grand show of wealth. And if you understood the root of castles and property and the idea that having tons of property or some mammoth house that you can't even fucking take care of, that you don't have because you can't hire butlers and servants to do it, that is an understanding that maybe is useful for people to understand how the rich live and how it shouldn't be this way. You shouldn't have someone with some massive house that has 47 rooms. You shouldn't have people with 7 cars and a yacht that they park their other yacht inside of. Like, that shit should not exist. And it creates egregious inequality and ridiculous situations where you have a family who got passed down a castle and they can't take care of it because they're not fucking rich. They just happen to have a castle. And it's like, if that understanding were given in their segment about this viral TikTok video, then okay. Then we're talking. Then they're doing something meaningful. But no, they have these videos, and even the ones that get into politics, like Donald Trump did this, Donald Trump did that, most of those are the phenomenally vapid view of what that situation is. It is just Donald Trump bad. Donald Trump lies. rather than a larger understanding of our two-party sham system, of our sociopathic politicians. They aren't getting at the deeper understanding. And it's hilarious that, like, me as a comedian and political commentator, I would be ashamed to be doing segments like that, even though I'm a fucking comedian. Like, if I were doing something, if I had a video devoted to the fact that a fucking T-ball fight happened, I have a justification. I have an out. Hey, I'm a comedian, and I decided to make this one a funny clip. So this one's silly, just doing silliness. But I don't know what their excuse is. They have no excuse. They're just fucking garbage, vapid bullshit. And so now they've decided to take it a step further and attack those who are not doing garbage, vapid bullshit. Attack those who are actually revealing the truth, like Aaron Mate and others. And Jimmy Dore, they're obviously furious at. And I'm not even getting into the other thing that has gone viral, which is that the Young Turks used to do segments on how you could see celebrities' camel toe, or camel toes, I guess. The celebrities didn't have a one camel toe. There wasn't like a joint camel toe between all of them. Was each of the celebrities they were highlighting had their own, honestly, camel toe. But yeah, it's not worth going back and watch. It's fucking pathetic. It's just sad. It's apparently for a long time they had a segment called "Can You Spot Celebrity Camel Toe?" and they sat there and talked about camel toe, and showed photos of celebrities that they wanted to mock, obviously women that they wanted to mock because of their outfits and because of what you could see if you zoomed in on photos. And it's repulsive, but it shows what the Young Turks is as a whole. And what I guess they've always been, even though when I used to go on, I probably was on 5 times or something on the Young Turks, maybe a couple more. And every time I went on, and I actually called out this exact problem on their airwaves on their show. One time I was on for like an hour, and I kept thinking we were going to get to the substantive, because sometimes they'd go for an hour and just have a guest like sitting there that they'd sometimes, be like, hey, what do you think? And so I was on for an hour once, and I kept thinking we were going to get to the substantive shit, to the real shit, really dig in. And instead, it was just vapid stories. It was nothing. It was Mitt Romney said this and did this, and look at what so-and-so was wearing. And so at one point during one of the most vapid stories, I just went, what the... I didn't say fuck because I don't know if you could curse on there, but I was like, what the hell are we talking about? What is this? The world is on fire. Like, literally, climate change is putting the world on fire, and we're talking about what? And so I said that. I said that on their airwaves, and Cenk laughed and said, I agree, and then changed the subject back to the nonsense, back to vapid nonsense. And they then ended up using the clip of me yelling as if it was a funny moment on one of their promos. So it actually played over and over again. But it was taken out of context. It was just like, what is this? It was like, and so you couldn't really understand what I was yelling about. But the point was, you guys are not talking about nothing. Nothing. The fucking people are turning to you to learn something. And instead, you're like, look at this TikTok video. Look at this camel toe. Look, Donald Trump is especially orange today. And it's like, I may make a joke about Trump being orange or Trump having a quadruple chin or whatever it is. I may make a joke. I may have a punchline about that. I don't have a whole segment devoted to the TikTok video. Even though if I did, that would be okay, because at least I could be like, hey, I'm a comedian. I'm having fun. Who knows what the fuck they are? Who knows what the fuck they're doing? But I can tell you one thing, attacking serious journalists, not a good look. Not a good look, Young Turks. So, but anyway, I wanted to do that because I wanted to get to like a broader sense of what they are. It's not just about like they got this wrong or they got that wrong or they attacked this one person or whatever. It's like if you scroll through their videos, you're going to find 75% are about nothing, are about vapid nothingness. Even when you think it's an important topic, if you click on it, it very well might not be. They very well might be giving you the most empty, soulless, meaningless view of that important topic. So I think that's an important understanding to have. We need to have, and you know, it's like maybe that's the key to success. Maybe that very well could be. They, you know, compared to me, they are phenomenally successful. So maybe they are the McDonald's of food. You know, they're the McDonald's of video. Maybe that's the key. You give people nothingness and you get a lot more clicks. And if that's what they want to be, then, you know, just be proud of it. Just put the fucking slogan at the top of the show. Hey, we're telling you nothing, meaning nothing, standing for nothing. Welcome to the Young Turks. If you want to do that, do it. Be proud of it, though. Be proud of who you are, you know? Don't fucking dick around and act like you matter and you mean something and then attack real journalists. That's not the answer. What's up, everybody? Hello. Starting a few minutes early. How you doing? It's another day, another beautiful day of finding out that news websites have been seized by the U.S. government and that a very rich, very famous man who rubbed a lot of people the wrong way has suicided himself in a Spanish prison. He's Epsteined himself in a Spanish prison, and we'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, a lot of stories to cover today. Thank you guys for joining me. Please take a second to hit the thumbs up and hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Let's make sure we're going on Rockfin too. As always, all the donations in the super chat are going to people who are struggling. It's our own little solidarity fund between me and you guys. Hey, Robin. Hey, Beverly. Hey, Mackenzie. Thanks for being here. All the donations in the super chat, all the donations on Rockfin, all the donations on Venmo at Lee Camp. Those are all donated to people who are struggling. And if you want to be added to that list of someone who needs some help, then you can email commoncensored@protonmail.com. We try to get to as many people as we can, but unfortunately we can't get to everyone. Love you too. Thanks for the comments, guys. Lot of stories to cover this time around. And the last thing I'll say is, so all those donations in the super chat go to people who are struggling. But the only place where you can support this show or support the podcast, Common Censored, that's liberapay.com/Lee Camp, liberapay.com/Lee Camp, because we get no money from ads or sponsors or anything like that. Okay, so, oh yes, thank you. Moment of clarity number 100. The new moment of clarity. There was an old moment of clarity that did get to like 300 some or whatever. But of the new version, this is episode 100. So thanks for being with me on the 100th episode. Let's get into some of this shit. Let's see. Should I talk about who was just suicided or nah, you guys don't want to know about that, do you? You don't care about that. You know, let's get to something you care about more. No, I will. I'll get into that first because it's so fucking crazy. John McAfee, who you might know his name. You might know his name because he is the creator, the founder of one of the largest antivirus softwares in your computer. You've probably seen the little McAfee badge. It's a brand name. So, you know, multi-millionaire, possibly billionaire, not sure, but hugely rich, has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Libertarian, ran for the Libertarian nomination for president in 2016 and 2020, didn't get it either time. Big Bitcoin supporter. Famously said that that Bitcoin would get to $500,000 in the next like 5 or 10 years. And if it didn't, he would eat his dick, which is, you know, that's quite a bet there. That's quite a promise. So McAfee was arrested in Spain for tax evasion. And by all accounts, I think it's quite evident that he probably was evading his taxes. I mean, he's jumped around the world, behaving rather strangely some of the time. But anyway, that's kind of a side point. And Spain announced that they were going to extradite him. The decision just came down within the past few days that they were going to extradite him to the U.S. to answer to tax evasion. And now the news today is that he has either been killed or has killed himself. This is from, let's see if you can see that. That's from Reuters. John McAfee found, what the fuck? John McAfee found dead in prison after Spanish court allows extradition. So somehow these people, very rich people that have rubbed people the wrong way. And let me be clear, Epstein, absolutely rapist, sex trafficker, one of the most horrible human beings that's ever lived. But he also had a lot of dirt on a lot of other very powerful people. So he is a villain who had dirt on other villains. And somehow he died in prison in New York. I covered it before that the autopsy showed that several of the bones in his neck that were broken rarely break during hanging. They break when someone is strangled to death. And it seems very likely that even when they break during hanging, it's like one of those violent hangings that you see in like the Old West movies that you see on fucking, like some Walking Dead shit. Like you see like, or Deadwood shit where they like hang them and they like fall 10 feet and their neck pops off. Like some crazy shit. That's when those bones break, not when someone hangs themselves in a prison where basically the only way to do it is if you have access to a shoelace, which Epstein did not. You like lean forward against a pipe, and it's very different than when you're dropped off a fucking platform. And so the odds that those bones would break in his neck during a prison self-hanging are, in my medical opinion, but also the opinion of many others, kind of ridiculous. So that's Epstein. And in this case, you have John McAfee, who's very rich and has gone against the ruling elite in many ways. And I don't know all of them. I don't know his private life. I'm not saying he's a good guy, all right? I think he was pretty villainous too. I don't know that he was as bad as Epstein, but very few are. However, how is it that these very rich celebrity fucking prisoners always seem to be able to kill themselves when they're supposedly being watched in prison? And supposedly, if it's like any prison here in the U.S., have had their Tony. Yes, I am a doctor. I went to medical school for I believe it was 1,700 years. It was a long medical school. No, I went to medical school for 1 week, which is also the amount of time that the guy went to medical school who came up with blood splatter analysis that proves that someone has killed someone. And he claimed that he was a doctor who understood exactly how to analyze blood splatter. So yeah, you don't really have to. I mean, you don't really have to go to school. You can just say you're a doctor. It's a lot more fun that way. Anyway, so how is it that all of these incredibly rich, incredibly controversial celebrities who get locked up end up being able to kill themselves? All right, I won't say all these, but at least we got two here that have happened recently, are somehow able to kill themselves, even when it's likely that all their shoelaces, anything sharp, they got like a fucking paper gown, yet somehow they're all able to hang themselves and break bones that only break when you're hanged from a large height. Very odd. Anyway, can't prove anything yet, but just know that John McAfee, no longer. So who knows what the fuck happened to him. But there's a lot of other weird shit in his life, so maybe he's not above taking his own life in this situation. A lot of other weird things have happened to him. There were claims that he murdered his neighbor down in some Latin American country, wherever he was living. I think he was kicked out of Nicaragua, Guatemala, or something. It is some very weird shit. So, not as with Epstein, not a normal existence for either of these guys. But it wouldn't surprise me, considering McAfee's abilities with computers. Obviously, it wouldn't surprise me if he had shit on tons of people that he could also easily blackmail. When you are, I mean, his software's in everybody's computers, or a lot of them. So you're telling me he doesn't probably have access to a lot of shit he probably shouldn't? Anyway. So there's that. I just found out about that right before coming on the air here. So I did not know I was going to be talking about any suicidings. And Dave points out that McAfee said the government was trying to kill him. But Dave, he also offered to eat his own cock if Bitcoin didn't go to $500,000. So, he was saying some interesting, unusual things. All right. I want to get to some other big stories. This one is fucking crazy. I mean, on the level of censorship, the level of how our government is not just suppressing outside views. And by outside, I just mean outside the corporate talking points, outside the Overton window, outside what is allowed for our ridiculous, rapacious, fucking death spiral of a state that we have in this country that is going to, that continues to walk us all off an environmental cliff and does fucking nothing about it. And if you're outside of that, if you stand up against that, then you are A, either heavily suppressed, or B, in the story I'm about to get to, fucking straight up seized, straight up deleted from the internet. I'll get to some of my most recent suppression against me in a second, but this is this is incredible. This is a new level of our government going after the press, the media of other countries. Because here's the thing, and the U.S. propaganda is it's on lock, right? It's anything you get from mainstream media is going to basically fawn over, basically do the work of the State Department. It is a State Department bullhorn, all of our mainstream media. And for those of us outside of it, it is very tough to even have an existence, to even be seen by people doing our work. And so they got their shit on lock. And yet they're furious that any other outlets could even get a small number of people to see their stuff, even when they've been purged from media. I mean, like RT, the network I'm on, they've been taken off of all cable channels across the United States, just about all of them, despite the fact that they were the number one international news in the United States. And they've been taken off of all of them, but that's not enough. Then they forced various outlets, including RT and including China's network to register as foreign agents, which is a registry that is only supposed to be meant for those who are lobbying for another country's interests, not for media. So it's a complete bullshit. That happened under Trump. But of course, Biden continues all of the anti-Russia, anti-China garbage, anti-Iran that continues to go on. Yes, CGTN, sorry not to say the initials. They've continued all of that. The sanctions against Russia were worse under Trump than under Obama, yet they tried to pretend as if he was pro-Russia, which, yeah, he said some positive things about Russia because he likes, fucking with the press and fucking with the media and fucking with a lot of the establishment. But the actual sanctions on Russia and the pulling out of the arms treaties against Russia were worse under Trump than even Obama, even though the new Cold War started under Obama. But the shutting down of all outside thought is fucking scary, and it's a horrible precedent. And the latest thing is that and even CNN covered it a little, with the CNN likes to do one little article online and then not mention it on their actual cable platform where everybody sees it so that they can say they covered it. But anyway, this is from CNN. The U.S. government seizes dozens of U.S. website domains. They added the word U.S. to make it sound like it's okay. The U.S. government seized dozens of, so there's already propaganda in this headline, but seized dozens of website domains connected to Iran. Now, they phrased that very carefully because they want you to be like, oh, sounds scary, connected to Iran. But that included Iran's news channel, one of Iran's news channels, Press TV, or several of Iran's news channels. And these are not, they're not fucking, horrible propaganda networks. They actually, Press TV has actually allowed some of this, allowed us to be able to hear certain stories that you could never get on your mainstream media, that you could never get from CNN, that you could never get on MSNBC and Fox News, and Press TV has been good for that at times. I'm not going to act like they're the most perfect fucking news channel in the world. None of them are. But the idea that the U.S. government is seizing news websites is fucking terrifying. And people should be flipping out because where does it go next, right? It goes to seizing, let's say, my website. Let's say seizing my Twitter account, seizing all the other shows on RT like Jesse Ventura and Chris Hedges. And then it goes to seizing people who are not on, RT or Press TV or something else, but just might have might have appeared as a guest on there or republished articles from those outlets. And it goes down this chain of seizing all of the sites that are adversarial to the U.S. empire, anything that reveals the U.S. empire for what it is. And we are slowly seeing that march. And it's amazing to see the number of people that are not fucking standing up against it. I mean, that may be the biggest story of it all. Not just that the U.S. has seized these sites, but that fucking you turn on half your mainstream media is certainly not covering it, with the exception of a little CNN propaganda article that couldn't even get the story straight. But you don't even see it in a lot of your independent media. A lot of them don't want to cover it, or don't think it's a big deal or something. All right, so here is, this is what you see if right now, or at least yesterday, I don't know if they've completely blacked it out, but this is what you get if you went to, like yesterday, if you went to Press TV's site, you'd get, this website has been seized by the U.S. government. Now, just pause and think about that precedent. Think about what that means. Think about when this will be the notice that you see on your website or some of the websites of your favorite online commentators, because that's where this is headed. There's also the fact that the U.S. did this. The U.S. did this seizure of, and it wasn't just Iran, by the way, it was also Yemen sites. So this means, by the way, that, of course, China has who knows how many U.S. websites associated to Chinese companies. And next, maybe the U.S. will decide, we're seizing all of the Chinese companies' websites. Who knows where some of them probably have their websites registered in the U.S. And it could be TV channels like CGTN. It could be maybe stores or technology companies or whatever. But that's the next step, right? What's the difference between Iran and China? This is just U.S. garbage propaganda that they've created to justify stealing websites, and which is essentially stealing a business, right? We talk about it as like, oh, it's just a web domain. They could create a new web domain. But when you have spent years creating the customer loyalty, the customer understanding of where your stuff is and how to go access it, it's basically like stealing the brand or stealing the storefront. You know, if people used to go into a certain place to get a piece of pizza and you steal their store and say, oh, yeah, we just seized this, your pizza store. But don't worry, you can sell your pizza anywhere else. That doesn't really work, right? That fucks up your entire business model, which is the goal. That's their goal here. But so people who think this isn't a big deal should fucking, I don't know, go chew on paint chips because you're not really useful for other things. So yeah, this is fun. I just realized that sometimes my shirt says man, which is not what I wanted to say, because that'd be fucking weird if I was walking around with a t-shirt that was like, I'm a man, motherfucker. Look at me. Look at me. I'm a man. Sucks for you who aren't men. No, it says it's a bigger word. There's a whole word there. But I'm sitting here preaching equality and justice, and everybody should be treated right and stop shitting on everybody else. But meanwhile, I'm wearing a t-shirt that's like, men rock. They're the best gender of all the genders. I love men. Men are awesome. Men are just so much better. I'm a man. Look at me, man. Look at me go, man. So anyway, the U.S. did this. They seized these sites while they're in the middle of the negotiations over the nuclear deal, the JCPOA, which is hilarious on so many levels. The U.S. is the one that pulled out of the fucking deal, right? Obama, one of the few fucking positive things that Obama did, agreed to this plan with Iran, started easing the sanctions, started easing the harm that the U.S. was doing to Iran, and then Trump gets into office, pulls out of the deal, fucking crams sanctions down their throat, assassinates their top general in Iraq, assassinates him in Iraq with other Iraqi top generals. When we're not at war with Iran, they're just killing their generals. I mean, it's fucking incredible. Supports Israel assassinating scientists in the streets of Iran. Does all of that. Then Biden gets into office and he continues all of the sanctions, continues just gut-wrenching sanctions, which do what, right? They kill the poor, they kill the kid, they kill babies, they kill elderly. That's who dies first from sanctions. Other people have incredibly difficult lives, but the ones that really die from like lack of medicine, lack of like electricity in the hospitals or whatnot, that's usually the young and the old and the ill. So every time you hear the U.S. government touting sanctions on a country, excited that they're doing sanctions to Venezuela or North Korea or Iran or any of these countries, just remember that is one of these politicians that we supposedly elected telling you how excited they are that they're killing children and old people and the infirmed. They're looking you in the eye and they're going, this is really great. We're killing some of the children in Venezuela by making sure they can't get medicine or making sure they, can't get in and out of the country to go get medical procedures elsewhere that they can't get in the country. Those kind of things. Anyway, it's just very exciting. We're killing a lot of babies because babies are weak, and we put these sanctions on Venezuela and we're killing a lot of babies there, killing a lot of babies in Iran too, and. For me, that is like the most rewarding part of being a politician, of being in office, here in the Senate. I'm just, the fact that I get to kill that many children and infants is just really exciting. Because, sometimes you worry, am I having an impact? Am I doing something with my life? And but then you get home at the end of the day and you go, yes. Look at all these babies I killed. Look, infants, old people. It's just and you realize, I am having an impact. I am doing something. And so that's just really exciting. Really, really, really warms your heart. And so, nobody can take that away from me. They can take, if I were to go bankrupt, they'd steal my house and maybe my wife divorces, maybe my kids don't want to talk to me. That certainly will happen. But the thing at the end of the day, though, maybe I have a shameful career in the Senate and I end up being just forgotten as like, oh, that guy who did that thing or whatever. And, all of that. But at the end of the day, they can't take away the fact that I supported killing all these children. I'll always have that. No one can take that away. I'll always have that. Thank you. I'd also like to thank the Academy. So that is what's going on right now. Oh, so about the nuclear deal. So they're having a negotiations right now as to whether to get Iran back on board, which is hilarious because the U.S. is the one that ripped it up, right? Iran was abiding by the entire nuclear deal. And the U.S. under Trump just fucking tore it all up and said, oh, you're wrong. And, and John Bolton was a big, one of the big brains behind that. And Steve Bannon and Mike Pompeo and all those, because they wanted war with Iran. They really want to crush Iran, despite the fact that that war would kill God knows how many of our troops, kill God knows how many of their people. It would be fucking horrific. You think Iraq was bad, any kind of war with Iran would be fucking horrific. And yet they still wanted that, right? Because Pompeo thinks we're all about to burn in a lake of fire, except for, people like him who have been, stapled the Bible to their forehead. Anyway. So they ripped up the deal. And then Biden gets into office and says, sheepishly gives a little nod to maybe we could get back on this deal. And so they're having these negotiations about getting back into the deal, which the U.S. ripped up. And it's funny because every time you hear the U.S. talk about it, every time you hear the Biden administration talk about this deal, they say, well, for Biden to get back, for Biden, they say, well, for Iran to get back in line with this, you ripped it up, motherfucker. What do you mean Iran needs to get back in line? You ripped it up, you sacks of shit. Anyway, so now they're seizing their news sites, which is, like I said, everybody should be afraid, fucking afraid, because that goes nowhere fast. Soon you will go to all the sites you love. You'll fucking go to the Gray Zone or Mint Press or, Empire Files or Jimmy Dore or hell, even The Intercept with all their problems. And you'll see this website has been seized by the U.S. government. And this is why we have to keep building up all the alternatives. You have to build up because I wish I knew how to code some shit. I don't know how to code shit. All right. I don't know how to code a goddamn thing. Mountain Dew Code Red. That's it. That's all I know. That's my idea of coding. And so I can't do this shit. People should be doing this shit. They should be building up things that are impenetrable, ways to have websites that are unstoppable, centered in other countries, centered on some sort of floating fucking servers that are international waters and no jurisdiction, and it's just a fucking Wild West. All this shit needs to be built up. We should have some kind of web that they can't even hit us with. They've basically ruined net neutrality. So people have to come up with new ways to fight against that. Anyway. So there's that story. Now let's go on to what else? I have two more. Oh, I just wanted to throw in here a fun story about my own suppression, about suppression of my accounts. Because here's the thing, with Iran, they can seize their sites. With my stuff, they just make sure no one sees it. So for those of you, 100, several thousand who will see this, not live. And by the way, if you're donating on Super Chat, all those donations go to people who are struggling. But if you are not watching this live, you can donate on Venmo at Lee Camp. All of those go to people who are struggling in these tough times. So check it out, or whatever, not check it out. donate. If you got a couple bucks, if you're getting $1 worth out of this content, then help people out. But so they can't seize. Well, they could delete my Facebook, but they haven't yet deleted my Facebook page. I'm not going to go through it again because I've told you many times, like, that my Facebook page used to gain 5,000 followers a week and has been shadow banned basically since 2016. But and they're slowly deleting followers. So now I'm down to 320,000 followers. Used to be 335. They're slowly deleting them. And here is the latest one. This was a new level of suppression, even for them, even for Facebook. I posted the new redacted episode on my site, 320,000 followers. And here, what's circled there is the number of shares and the number of comments. The post has 4 shares after 4 days and 7 comments. And that amounts to, of my 320,000 followers, that is, and Facebook says they've shown the post. You can't see it, but if I look in the analytics, I can see it. They've shown the post to 2,796 people, which is 0.9% of my followers. They've shown the post to less than 1% of my followers. And that's not even including people that the post is shared. It is including people the post is shared with that are not followers. So here's the thing, is your reach on a post should be many times your number of followers. If every one of your followers were showing your post, and even just a small percentage of them, let's say 10%, decide to share the post with other people, then I have 320,000 followers. You should expect probably several million people to see a given post. 320,000 followers, if Facebook showed it to every follower, a person who has actively clicked on my page, said, I want to see the things that Lee Camp posts. If they've done that and it were showed to 320,000 people and just a fraction of them, 10%, shared it to others who then shared it to others, then that post, the reach of that post should easily be many millions. Instead, Facebook is telling me the reach of that post was 2,700 people, 0.9% of the number of followers I have. So it's borderline meaningless, right, to post on Facebook. It's essentially like showing it to no one. They have taken a large page, and again, I want to use the restaurant analogy because a lot of people like to think like, oh, well, so what, man? Go to another site or whatever. But it's like people spent years building up their Facebook pages because it is a business. It is like building a restaurant that you keep adding on to, and you keep trying to get more customers, and you're building it and adding to it and building it and adding to it and getting brand recognition and getting partnerships with other people and all this shit. And then you walk up one day and they go, hey, we know that so about 1,000 people walk into your restaurant every day. We're just going to limit that to one person a day. Well, we're going to, after that one person enters, we're going to shut the doors and lock them. And you're like, well, hold on. I spent 10 years building up this fucking restaurant. And they're like, yeah, we know. But we're just going to, after one, don't worry, you still get that one person. Maybe some days we'll do 2. Some days we'll let you have the second person. And then we'll lock the doors. And, but you still get to have your restaurant. We're not taking that away from you. Okay. We're not going to delete the restaurant. All right. We are, your restaurant will still be there. You're just going to lock the doors after that person walks in. But so you get a customer a day. That's very exciting for you. You still get a customer a day. And on top of this, like that episode of Redacted Tonight, some of my episodes are like how the U.S. is funding terrorists. And Facebook sees the word terrorist and just says, nope, not showing it to anyone. This one it was about, the last episode was about the hilarious continued efforts, this anti-Cuba propaganda done by our U.S. State Department and U.S. government, the hilarious stuff about, oh yeah, they had a headache cannon that they shot one diplomat with that gave him a light headache for like 2 days. And that did a lot for them. They really hitting that one guy with that headache cannon. Huge benefits to Cuba. Anyway, they're still pushing this. This propaganda, they just had a whole new round of it where they said, oh, it's whoever has the headache cannon is still using it. Anyway, that's what the show was about. That's what the title of that episode's about. And so this is not a edgy fucking, compared to some of my other stuff, this is not an edgy topic. It didn't say, hey, look at all the children being killed. You know, it wasn't a community guidelines strike. It wasn't that wasn't any of that stuff. And they showed it to less than 1% of the followers of my page. And it's the same on, similar on YouTube, similar on Twitter. And here's the other thing I just want to say about this before I move on to the final topic, is that for those independent outlets out there that are not having this problem, if you're one of those independent outlets and you've got millions of fucking views every day, then you're probably doing something wrong. Probably whatever garbage you're spouting is supporting the mainstream media or the mainstream, or at least is not threatening to them. And there's different ways to not be threatening. And this doesn't mean I want every important outlet to be fucking fully suppressed or some shit. But, some of them are still doing very well, but they still have to face a lot of suppression. Look at Empire. Look at Abby Martin's Empire Files. They still have videos that often get hundreds of thousands of views, but a lot of their videos you can't even search. You can't even find them. Their film documentary they put out about Gaza. You can type the name exactly into YouTube and you won't be shown the documentary. So they are facing loads of suppression. So if you're not facing suppression, then you're doing something wrong. You are saying something that is fine with the corporate elite. You are saying something that's fine with those who make sure we can't have health care. That is fine with those who are gutting public education, who are destroying this country, destroying the environment, who are driving us off a fucking ecological cliff and making it so we can't live on this planet. They're fine with your content if you're not being suppressed. So that's something to think about. So if you claim to be different than that, then fucking prove it. All right. So anyway, I wanted you guys to know what I'm dealing with on my Facebook page. But thanks for your support. Thanks for being here. Thanks for emailing these videos to people is still incredibly helpful. But I want to get to one more topic. This is about Florida, the great state of Florida, which has never really made any poor choices. Have you noticed that? It is just rock solid choices down in Florida. I was there a lot. I've been there a lot of my life because my grandparents used to be in Florida, as are everybody's grandparents. And so I was there every summer as a kid. And it turns out everything's going great there. Every Floridian you meet is just got a real solid lock on reality. You notice that? They just know exactly what's happening. All right. So this is from down in Florida. The governor there, a wonderful, wonderful man, has just announced, and this is from Fox News, but this story is true. Whenever you show a Fox News headline, you have to first go and look up whether the story is true. Actually, when you show a headline from any mainstream media, but Florida will require schools to teach civics. I love how that's like a side note. And the evils of communism. They are requiring schools to teach the evils of communism. DeSantis will require high school students to learn The Evils of Communism is what the subtitle says. And before I get into reading some of this article, I guarantee you they're not actually going to teach what communism is. They're going to teach that communism equals Stalinism. Stalin was a horrific totalitarian leader who also won World War II, but horrific totalitarian leader who fucking, killed all his enemies and all his shit. But they want to equate the idea of communism with Stalinism. And they will do that. And then once they've created that propaganda, they'll then tell you that anybody who supports any kind of socialism wants communism. And they've already laid the groundwork that communism equals everybody being murdered and you're all wearing the same clothes and you have to work with a plow your whole life. So they already will have taught everybody that that's what communism means. And then they'll call every socialist communist. And that's really what they plan to do. And most of the mainstream media has done this too. So this is not, here's the thing, this is a right-wing fucking idiot ideologue, but he's also going along with basically everything our government does anyway, right? Act like horrific moments in history are the fault of communism rather than the fault of some horrific leader, And then on top of that, I want to hear how much they're going to teach the harms of capitalism, which is currently making this planet absolutely unsustainable. So it is currently about to cause the extinction of human beings through capitalism, and that's not a problem. That doesn't need teaching. No one needs to learn that. We won't tell them that in school. Hey, the system we have now is killing all of us and making all of you think that most of what matters in life is not what really matters in life. Capitalism and consumerism through capitalism. And so how much education do you think they'll get on that in these Florida schools? So that being said, let me read a little bit of this article. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis announced new state programs for students Tuesday that will require civics and patriotism education as well as CPR training. Oh, yeah, let's throw that in there. Patriotism education. Does anybody not get enough patriotism in this country? At what point did you turn around and go, I wish somebody would teach people about patriotism? This is the fucking United States. All they do is talk about patriotism. Every other country, when other people from other countries come to the United States and walk around, they go, why is there a flag hanging from everyone's fucking porch? Okay, that's not normal. That's not normal. And so you don't need to teach patriotism. You got firecrackers up your ass every day of the week. We have patriotism. We have it endlessly. You can't go to a fucking ball game without seeing jets flying overhead and people saluting and all kinds of shit. Our ball games look like military parades in other countries. And we're the only one that does it this insane, this much. You got to have a flag every goddamn 3 feet. You got to have a flagpole up your ass so you can wave the flag while you have your hands full. You can just twerk a little with it. It's fucking crazy the amount of patriotism that goes on in the United States. Not to mention every one of our goddamn mainstream media outlets is built on putting forward the garbage propaganda of the United States government. So people really need some education on that? Do they need some more indoctrination? Or are children not getting that? Are they not learning that? You got to we're one of the only countries where every day in school, you have to fucking stand up and say a pledge. You have to pledge to the country, which is a fucking idiotic. Because what is a country? Is it the military? Is it the soil? I'm on this soil. Oh, that makes me in love with this soil. I pledge my heart to this patch of soil because a guy put a line over there where that you go past that line in fucking Canada. I don't pledge to Canada. No, I don't pledge to that soil over there. I only pledge to this soil right here. The fuck is a country? So every day you got kids that have to stand up, say the pledge, and Jesus Christ. Yeah, there's not enough patriotism in our schools. There's a quote from DeSantis. I'm surprised he can speak sentences. Once students graduate high school, some will go to college, some of them will do other things. Whatever you do, this civics is going to be relevant. This civics? Because you are going to be a citizen. Okay, thanks, DeSantis. It will also require high school students to learn about, quote, the evils of communism and totalitarian ideologues. I got bad news for you, DeSantis. We live in a totalitarian state, all right? As political philosopher Sheldon Wolin said, we live in inverse totalitarianism, which is totalitarian. It is the anonymous corporate rule is our totalitarian state. The anonymous corporate rule of both parties, of all media, of all airwaves, just about, with the exception of this video right here. We live in, he calls it inverted totalitarianism, not to mean it's not totalitarian, but to mean it is basically a large blob of fucking phenomenally rich people that are sociopaths, and they're basically anonymous, with the exception of, some you see at the front, the Bidens and the Trumps, and the Nancy Pelosi's and the McConnells. With the exception of a few you see at the front of it, it's basically anonymous. And it is a tiny group of individuals compared to the population of the state. And that group runs things. And this goes for most countries, right? It goes for Britain. It goes for Canada. And it's ruled by the anonymous corporate state. And so we live in that totalitarianism, the totalitarian structure of the capitalist state. And yet here you have DeSantis being like, we got to teach that we have all the freedom. We have lots of the freedom and the others don't have the freedom, because we have the freedom of you can vote for whoever you want to, as long as it's one of the two corporate parties that we allow on the ballot that agree on 80% of all issues. That is, you can vote for anybody you want to, as long as it's one of the two ridiculously wealthy sociopaths. Those are your choices. Freedom to choose between those two. As if DeSantis isn't a fucking ideologue. Like, you gotta be kidding me. Here's another quote. We have a number of people in Florida, particularly southern Florida, who've escaped totalitarian regimes, who've escaped communist dictatorships to be able to come to America. We want all students to understand, why would somebody flee across shark-infested waters to come to southern Florida? Why would somebody leave a place like Vietnam? Why would people, I don't know if that's his typo, or why would people leave these countries to risk their lives to be able to come here? Okay. First of all, you're telling me nobody in the United States has ever fled the United States? We have people leaving all the fucking time, all right? So why do they do that? Secondly, if you want to, so he's claiming, he's talking about shark-infested waters, he's talking about people leaving Cuba. If you want to say that Cuba is this awful totalitarian fucking hellhole, then what do you say to the Americans who are homeless right now, where Cuba has zero homelessness? What do you say to the Americans who are jobless and fucking destitute and fucking desperately struggling, and their lives are collapsing because they can't find a good job? And what do you say to them, considering Cuba has a job guarantee and everybody who wants to can get a job? Now, there are obviously issues with that. You might not end up in the job you want, but compared to the fucking people that are desperate in America, just the number of suicides in America alone. Yeah, you want to talk about people desperately getting out, fleeing through shark-infested water? Talk about the number of people that committed suicide in the United States over the past few years. Huh? They certainly seemed eager to get out, didn't they? Then they see me get the fuck out of here. They were willing to make the ultimate journey to get the hell out of here. No, but many of them, in all honesty, they didn't all kill themselves because of the United States. But in all honesty, probably a very large number of them are dealing with issues that are connected to country policies, national policies. Stuff like having their houses stolen by the banks, which then destroy families, which then cause divorces, which then cause them to not be able to see their kids, dealing with joblessness, dealing with the fact that they're working in a job that they fucking hate it all day long just so they can afford to live. A lot of the reasons that people take their lives are connected to national policies, and it is not their fault. It's not their fault that they're in that position. And we are in a post-scarcity world, for the love of fuck. We are in a world, and especially a country, considering how goddamn rich the United States is, we are definitely in a country where everybody could be housed, everybody could have a job if they wanted it, everybody could have food, everybody could have clothes. There should be nobody fucking homeless. And it should be as offensive for a bank or something to steal someone's house than it should be for someone to set that house on fire. There's no goddamn difference. And so, what do you, fucking DeSantis, what do you tell to these people who are struggling in this wonderful land that you claim is so perfect, while other countries are so troubled because they have different socioeconomic policies? Also, did he throw Vietnam in there? The number of people we murdered in Vietnam, the number of lives we destroyed in Vietnam, you really want to throw Vietnam in there? Jesus Christ, man. You know how many people still have scars from Vietnam, from the shit we did, from the napalm we dropped? The number of people died, continue to die today from Agent Orange, from the cancers they've gotten? You really want to throw Vietnam into this equation? Yeah, let's talk about Vietnam. Let's talk about us going over there to a country we had nothing to do with and killing millions upon millions of people. Maybe you'll throw in Korea too. We killed a third of all their people in Korea. In North Korea. We murdered so many people that literally, like they say, it's between 27 and 30 some percent of their population was murdered by us. For what? What were we doing? Being this great, wonderful capitalist system that is so wonderful and peaceful and loving that you want to teach people about? So yeah, he wants to force this garbage propaganda, which is a combination of just shit capitalist propaganda with straight up idiocy. He wants to force it on Florida high schoolers, which I can promise you, they weren't that bright to begin with. All right, maybe I'm being a little hard on Florida. But they probably didn't have the best education system to begin with. If I know how Florida has probably treated their public schools without even having to research it, God, what a piece of shit. And then he quotes from someone who, someone from Latin America who talks about how she had to flee each of these countries. She fled Nicaragua and then fled Venezuela because of socialism. That's why she wanted to flee, because of socialism. And like, really? It wasn't possibly because of the shit we've done to these countries, of the horrors we've brought to these countries, of the awful goddamn leaders we've propped up and created coups for in some of these countries? In Venezuela, the people are struggling right now because we have gutted their economy. We have taken an oil economy, which was what Venezuela was, and basically shut it off. For what? For why? Because we want our coup to put in our fucking puppets so we can steal their oil, so we can steal their resources, which John Bolton said live on Fox News. He said we want to get in there to get their oil. So the people who think, oh, I'm just fleeing because of socialism, clearly don't understand the whole system. They don't understand why that country's really struggling or where the harm is really coming from. All right. I think I've screamed myself out. I think I've done it. Thank you guys for being here. Parasocialite says they're reading Vijay Prasad's book and they highly recommend it. Vijay Prasad does great work. Judy Meyer is mentioning Juan Guaido, which, what is he doing now? Remember that? We pretended Juan Guaido was the president of Venezuela, despite the fact that he'd never been elected, never had one vote cast for him for president of Venezuela. We were just like, look, there he is. He's Venezuela. He's president. That's him. Oh, Alexander tells me I asked about Florida schools. He says, I went to Florida school for many years and you hit the nail on the head. It's glorified babysitting. Yeah, not good. Not good. A lot of American schools have now been gutted so that the right wing can point to the public schools, which, by the way, both parties are now right wing. They've gutted the public schools, the funding for the public schools, and their abilities to actually give kids good education. And then they point to that and go, look, the public education sucks. It's like, yeah, you destroyed it. And they're like, no, the key is that it sucks just because it's public. And so we need to bring in these private schools and charter schools, and that's going to fix things so that you can pay us lots of money. Give us lots of money, and we're going to fix it. See, the problem with public schools was that they were public, was that anyone could come and get them. See, this is the problem with there not being a Soviet Union. When there was a Soviet Union, the United States had some little level of need to provide for their citizens so that everybody didn't point over at the Soviet Union and go, hey, but they have that stuff. So like when they felt some level of need to have a good public education, some level of need to have functioning infrastructure, functioning water systems that aren't filled with lead. There was some need to have that stuff so that we could say, yeah, we're America and we're number one compared to other places because we give everybody great education, great infrastructure. You know, you can fund a family on one job. There was some need for that. But with the collapse of the Soviet Union, the leaders, the rulers of the United States feel no need to make sure people have a good public education, a good free education. Feel no need to make sure that, hospitals are functioning well or that infrastructure is functioning well. They're just like, yeah, where are you going to go, right? You can't swim across shark-infested waters, that's for sure, right? Where are you going to go? You're not going to go anywhere unless you kill yourself, which we talked about that option. Please, nobody do that. Please. Bad idea. Bad idea. But also don't become a antivirus billionaire and then find yourself in a Spanish prison where you get encouraged to commit suicide. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Moment of Clarity. This is a big one. I have Greg Palast here. You know him as the phenomenal investigative journalist and New York Times bestselling author. But before I bring him in, and by the way, take a second, please, to share this, let people know. Also, any donations that are made in the super chat will go to people who are struggling. For most of you will not be watching this live. If you're not watching this live, you can donate on Venmo at Lee Camp. All of those donations will also go to people who are struggling out there. But I want to start off by showing you a short 2-minute video that Greg Palast has just released on his investigation in Georgia, and you'll see the details in a moment. But I think it might be some of the worst names he's been called by an elected official, which is saying a lot because he's been called a lot of names by a lot of elected officials. So, can't get the Rockfin to go, but that's all right. We'll do the other channels anyway. So, all right, let's go to the video here, and then we'll bring in Greg Palast.
Marietta, Georgia.
We're about to meet with a GOP official who says that she has personal knowledge that 32,000 people are voting illegally in this county.
So my name is Pamela Reardon. I am currently 6th District Committee woman to the state party. I know for sure voters do not live here.
Altogether, Reardon and her cronies are challenging 364,000 citizens' right to vote.
This year, Georgia's GOP-controlled legislature passed a new law saying you can challenge an unlimited number of voters. Do you know this woman? You recognize that woman?
Not offhand. I don't.
You never spoke to her?
No.
What about this guy and his wife on his honeymoon? Do you recognize that man?
No.
So you didn't call him, but you challenged his right to vote or have his ballot challenged.
Sir, get out of my house.
Okay, I will get out of your house.
ACLU of Georgia attorney Rahul Garabadu.
The challenge statute didn't ever contemplate someone coming to town and challenging hundreds of thousands of voters at one time. This, in our view, was an abuse of that statute. That doesn't mean that you get to print out reams and reams of Excel spreadsheets and just, levy a charge against thousands of people that you don't even know and get them, removed off the rolls.
The 1871 Ku Klux Klan Act makes voter intimidation a crime.
Imagine using the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871.
Here is NAACP lawyer Gerald A. Griggs.
It gets real when you get arrested. It's real.
You heard of the Ku Klux Klan law of 1871?
I'm from Canada.
So you don't know the Ku Klux Klan law?
I'm from Canada.
Clearly you don't know Georgia law. He's a legal
I got
voter.
my right to vote in '94. So I don't like people voting illegally. Get out of my house now.
I shall get out of your house
Before
now.
I throw you.
And you are sure that this is your legal voting address?
You are.
Georgia, divided down the middle. And this civil war ain't over. This is Greg Palast in Georgia reporting.
So there you go. Greg's latest piece. Let's bring him on to talk about it. Here's Greg Palast. Hey.
Hey, let me turn up the lights a bit. Okay. Wait. There we go. All right. Yeah.
You look beautiful.
I couldn't even put on all of the statements that she had. Forget the beeps. I mean, she said, she called me an a-hole. She said, and now you have to understand, she's dressed like Nancy Reagan, very formal, in her 70s, Republican. And, she says, F you. And she's like screaming at my staff, you're all a-holes. So this is going on and on. And her husband, but here's what you didn't see in the film, Lee.
Yeah.
There was a reason why I skedaddled out of there quickly. Which is she had a shotgun right next to the door where I was saying, is this your real? And she had between us on the table while I was interviewing her, she had all these handguns and the ammo boxes all stacked up. I'm not kidding you.
Well, I'm glad you didn't get shot, but let's back up and maybe further explain what it was you were asking her about and how exactly this came to be. You've been fighting various voter purging efforts in Georgia for years now, but this is a new one, huh?
Yeah. So I was with Rolling Stone and Salon and the Guardian investigating Georgia for 8 years. Vote suppression, as they call it, which is basically screwing black people out of their votes. And that I've been doing for 20 years. So I've been following Georgia for 8 years because everyone just thought it was a red state, rednecks. And Martin Luther King III said to me, hey, Greg, if they let us vote, it's a blue state. So I investigated and I do a lot of undercover stuff, et cetera. How we got into her house, well, we'll discuss that another day. But
what is she running for?
Now she is currently a Republican Party official, but she is Marjorie Taylor Greene's candidate for vice chair of the Republican State Party of Georgia. She probably will win that one. And so what happened was this woman personally challenged the right of 32,000 people to vote, including, you saw that black woman, Tamara Horn. She never called anyone. She never checked anything. I called Tamara. We called the Palace investigative team. We called 800 people. And she said they didn't live in Cobb County, which is a suburb of Georgia, so they can't vote there. They're all criminals. Big crime wave. She was joined, her 32,000 challenges were joined by the chairman of the county party, the Republican chairman of the party, who added another 16,000 challenges. That's 48,000 votes. If they'd done these challenges before the presidential race, Agent Orange would still be president. He would have, we'd have lost Georgia.
Right.
So they're challenging, and this is a big point, Lee. Yeah. They're using something weird that many states have, an old Jim Crow law that says that any voter, they call him an elector, any voter can challenge any other voter. So it was a white guy saying, don't let Joe Black vote. He shouldn't be voting. But now, instead of the kind of white sheet patrol, it's become spreadsheets. They're sending in spreadsheets with all together in Georgia. These operatives of a Texas organization, almost all of them GOP officials, challenge 364,000 voters. 364,000 voters. That's a third of a million voters.
What's the next step in the process? Once they're challenged, what happens then?
Oh, well, that's why you saw that that our lawyer from the ACLU on this. Well, two things. The first from the NAACP guy, the next step is to handcuff them and throw them in the can, throw them in prison under the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871. It's a crime. You can't just massively challenge people of color and say that's a form of intimidation. Now, what they have to do, okay, you're challenged. Now the county's supposed to send you a postcard saying you have to come in for a hearing to prove you are who you are. Now, most people get these cards, they think it's junk mail, they throw them away. What, I got to go in? I have to say who I am? Yeah. And the ACLU also noted that, in Georgia, there's not a lot of vaccinated people. And so you would be sending literally tens of thousands of people into a little county office during a pandemic. And it's insane. People would have to take a day off work, and then they'd have to get in line with a couple thousand other people.
Right.
So at first, the counties have resisted it, but under the new law passed by the Georgia legislature, because the county said, we can't do this. First, they mounted the challenge in December before the Senate runoffs, by the way. But the ACLU and Stacey Abrams' organization all said, no, you can't remove people within 90 days of an election. What the ACLU and NAACP didn't know is that after the 90 days expire, these people are back with their challenges. So you have to go in and say, I'm Lee Camp, and say, how do you know? And here's where I live. Well, how can you prove that? So you get but if you can do that, you get your vote back. Thanks a lot.
And that type of procedure benefits the middle class, upper class people that have time on their hands to go deal with something like that. Have own cars.